good-looking and outstanding practical research advisor, Ms. Dimple Matias, to our beloved and dearest classmates and teachers, a delightful and a glorious morning to all. We, the Group 1 researchers, and I, Karen Grace Didi Guzman as their leader, will present to you our research study entitled Effects of Online Distance Learning on Research Competence Among Senior High School Students of Malasiki Agno Valley College, School Year 2020 to 2021. Before we proceed to our discussion, let me give you some reasons why we chose this topic. We chose this topic entitled Effects of Online Distance Learning on Research Competence Among Senior High School Students of Malasiki Agno Valley College, School Year 2020-2021, since being competent in research is one of the most important roles of senior high school students who are conducting research study. Also because it is seasonal. Because of the crisis and pandemic that we encountered, the new method of learning was implemented which has positive or negative effects to all senior high school students who are conducting research study. That's why we, the Group 1 researchers, we want to know the effects of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students who are conducting research study, to help them with their problems and to make the teachers and the school itself to become aware of the students' experiences in research study. At this juncture, we will now proceed to the Chapter 1 of this research study. The Chapter 1 covers the problem of the study and its background. It also includes the introduction, the background of the study, the statement of the problems, and the objectives which I am going to discuss with you. Let us now proceed to the introduction of this research study. And based on the information provided on the screen, due to the pandemic caused by COVID-19, we are all aware that the whole world encountered this crisis or this pandemic caused by COVID-19. And because of this, it has huge impact on our education. Additionally, the rapid growth of information technologies has influenced the way of learning, the way in which education is experienced and delivered by the students. That's why, as we observed, the conventional or the traditional learning method was no longer used by the institutions or by the teachers, because the most common method used by the private schools or by the teachers in our contemporary time is the new method of learning, which is the online distance learning. And this online distance learning, its purpose or its main elements includes the physical separation of the teachers and the students during instruction or during teaching. However, as I have mentioned earlier, because of the pandemic caused by COVID-19, the new method of learning, which is online distance learning, has emerged and was implemented, and it has different effects to all students, especially in their academic performances and in their competency, especially in their research competence, which is the main focus on this research study. We all know that being competent is important for students, and competence in research is the ability of the researchers to provide high quality research. For this reason, it is important for the students to become competent in the research study. However, because of this new method of learning, we are not sure if the students are still capable or prefer to use or to conduct research study through online distance learning or through our traditional method of learning. That's why we researchers, the Group 1 researchers, would determine, through this research study, we will determine the competence or the effects of online distance learning on the research competence of senior high school students. We will also identify the advantages and disadvantages of conducting research study through online distance learning, and to assess the performance of the students, their level of eagerness, their level of interest with this kinds of activity in school, which is research study through online distance learning. Let us now move on to the background of the study. We all know that background of the study consists of statements. on what led the researchers to launch the study. The background of our study states that our contemporary time is characterized by rapid changes, and because of these rapid changes, it results from scientific and technological advances. That's why we are using our new method of learning, which is online distance learning in our contemporary time. Keeping up with these changes is our only way to cope with the problems. That's why the students nowadays have no choice but to cope with this new method of learning, which is online distance learning, which may affect the academic performance and the competence in research of senior high school students. However, it is not simple to conduct research study even through traditional way of learning and through our new way of learning, which is online distance learning in the midst of pandemic, because many students or many senior high school students would encounter technical problems and many difficulties. That's why this research study would answer the problems regarding the effects of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students. Let us now proceed to the statement of the problem. We all know that statement of the problem states the general statement of the whole problem, followed by the specific questions to be answered with this research study. The aim of this research study is to provide the best information for the satisfaction of answers and solutions regarding to the problem of this research study. And we have 4 questions to be answered with the statement of the problem. The first one is how does online distance learning may impact the competence of research study among senior high school students. In this question, we want to answer the impact of this new method of learning, which is online distance learning, to the senior high school students. The second one is what are the advantages and disadvantages of conducting research study through the means of online communication. We all know that in every situation, in every aspect, there would be advantages and disadvantages. And through this online distance learning caused by COVID-19, it may have advantages and disadvantages. And this is what this research study will answer. And the third one is what are the common problems that senior high school students may encounter while conducting research in the midst of online class. And we all know that it is not an easy task for the senior high school students to conduct research study through online distance learning. There would be many problems and difficulties that they may encounter. That's why this research study will know the common problems that the senior high school students may encounter. And the last one is how eager the students to cooperate in conducting their research study nowadays. We all know that not all students nowadays, based on our new method of learning, are not don't have interest with our research study. That's why we will know the level of interest on how the senior high school students are eager to cooperate with their research study through online distance learning. Next is the objectives. Objectives is one of the most important part of this research study because it is our goal. It describes concisely what this research study is trying to achieve. And we have 3 objectives for this research study. The first one is to determine the effects of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students. Since our main focus is to know or to determine the effects of online distance learning on research competence among senior high school students of Malasica Agno Valley College, one of our aims or one of our goals is to know or to determine the effects of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students. The second one is to identify the advantages and disadvantages of conducting research study through online distance learning caused by COVID-19. And since we also want to know the effects of online distance learning, to know if the effects are negative effects or positive effects, we have to know the advantages and disadvantages of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students. That's why our aims or our goal is to identify the advantages and disadvantages. That's why we will determine if the effects of online distance learning will be negative effects or positive effects of all the senior high school students in Malasiki and Nuvali College. The third one is to examine and assess the performance of senior high school students in their research competence amidst new method of learning, since students are the most important factors that may affect the online distance learning. We will examine their performances, especially their academic performances and their research competence, which is the main focus of this research study, while conducting their research study through online distance learning.
Significance of the study. The findings of this research study will provide an effective and beneficial to the following. First is to the senior high school student. This research study is intentionally made by the researchers for all senior high school students who are required to conduct a research study which would help them to cope with the problem encountered in research, especially in today's way of learning, that could affect their performance and competence in their research study. We, as a senior high school student who are required to conduct a research study, to know or to how to cope with the problem that we encountered in research, especially in today's way of learning, which is online distance learning, that could affect the performance and competence of our research study. To the teachers, the results of this research study would help teachers to have awareness on what they should and shouldn't be doing in order for students to become competent in research study despite a pandemic that caused students to learn through online distance learning. The results of this research study would give awareness of every teachers on what they shouldn't in order for students to become more competent in their learning despite pandemic that caused new way of learning. Third is to the parents. The results of this research study would help the parents to understand their children's situation in learning online in conducting research through online distance learning in order for them to know how to help their children to surpass such problem. The results of this research study would give information to the parents to understand their children's situation to this new way of learning and in conducting research through online distance learning, and to the parents know how to help their children to survive the problem that may cause of this pandemic. To the Malasiki Agnubali College, this research study would help the school to know the students' competence in research and to improve their services in order for the students to be more competent despite the new method of learning. This research study could give to school an information about the students' competence in research and to provide the needs of every student to be more competent despite this new method of learning and to improve the services of school. To the future researchers, this research study would help the future researchers as their basis of their study and additional literature for their future investigation. This research study could give information to help future researchers as source or basis of their study, and it can be additional literature of their future investigation. And that would be all in significance of study. scope, limitation, and delimation. This research study focuses only on the research competence of senior high school students sa gitna ng pag-aaral through online distance learning. Hindi saklaw ng anumang problemang hindi kasangkot sa topic na ito. This study would be held in Malasiki Agnubali College, a private school from Malasiki, Pangasinan, a one who implemented an online distance learning due to the pandemic. This research study would be done through the use of Google Forms para makakandak ng surveys and questionnaires. And these surveys are limited only for 100 students of Malasiki Agnubali College as respondents. Also, this research study aimed to answer the problem regarding the effects of online distance learning on research competence among senior high school students to know the problem of the students that they encountered through online distance learning brought this COVID-19.
Theory of interaction from communication. Yun, from the word itself na super duper related to sa research natin. Kasi, in order to receive and send messages, di ba, we need to interact and communicate. Parang yung ginawa natin nung nagpa-survey tayo. Itong ginawa natin tuwing online class. Kasi di ba, walang nangyari pag walang exchange of conversation, questions, and answers at marami pang iba. Makakadagdag sa knowledge natin. Next naman po is conceptual framework. Input. Ito po is yung objectives. Ito po yung nilalaman ng aming research in order to provide our forecast. Output. Nandito po yung demographic profile, name, gender, age, effects of online distance learning research competence among senior high school students, advantage and disadvantage of conducting research studied through online communication, common problem that senior high school students may encounter while conducting research in the midst of online class. Para naman ma-achieve natin yung output na yun, we will undergo a process. At yung process na ginawa po namin is survey and questionnaires. Yung survey and questionnaires, ipapasagutan po natin ito sa ating mga respondents through Google Forms. Yung output ay yung desired or expected na. Nandito po is yung improve or worsen the research competence of senior high school students. Increase the students' dependability on internet. It becomes efficient and faster to transfer information around quickly, which means you can save money and time. Difficulty of collecting factual information in conducting a survey. Students encounter technical difficulties. Time management. Additional stress to the students. Next naman po is yung definition of terms. Research. Ito yung sistematikong pagsisiyasat at pag-aaral na kung saan nadadagdagan ang ating nalalaman kapag tayo ay nag-search ng mga bagay-bagay. Competence. Ito naman po is yung ability or skill in a specific field or subject or being able to do something well. Online. Ito naman po is very common na online means that a computer, any device, or a person is connected to a network. Kapag nakakonect sa Wi-Fi or naka-data, ganun po, naka-online po tayo nun. Pwede po tayong makipag-communicate sa ibang tao pag tayo po ay naka-online or connected sa Wi-Fi. Next naman po is learning. Ito po, from the word itself, learning, learn. Nag-aaral to gain more and have a new skills. that we can develop when we do learning. Pag nag-aaral po tayo, mas lumalawak po ang ating kaalaman sa iba't ibang bagay. COVID-19. Ito po is the virus that can kill a lot of people. Dahil sa sakit na ito, madaming pamilya ang naghihirap. Ito po ang virus na hanggang ngayon is hindi pa rin po nare-resolve. At dahil sa tagal nito, masyado na itong nakaka-perwisyo. CO means corona and VI is for virus. And also D is for disease. And pandemic. Ito naman po is yung malawakan. Worldwide. Malawak na area. Multiple countries or continents are nasisira niya and naapektuhan niya. Ganun po.
So let us now proceed to the review of related literature. A review of related literature is a detailed review of existing literature related to the topic of a thesis or dissertation. So in an RRL, you talk about knowledge and findings from existing literature relevant to your topic. So this chapter presents foreign and local literature and studies which the researchers deem relevant with the present study. Such as literature and studies cited pave the way in determining the extent of how far researchers have gone through the area under investigation. So, under review of related literature, we have first, foreign literature, foreign studies, local literature, and synthesis. So, let us first tackle about foreign literature. So, Online Distance Education Towards a Research Agenda is edited by Olaf Zawacki Richter and Terry Anderson. The first edition of the book was published in 2014 in Edmonton by AU Press, Athabasca University. Online Distance Education Towards a Research Agenda is actually part of a series of studies. So, in the first study, Zawacki Richter on 2009 developed a classification of research areas employing Delphi technique. So, when we say Delphi technique, it is a structured communication technique or method originally developed as a systematic, interactive forecasting method which relies on a panel of experts. Kumbaga, ito yung structured way of communication na ginamit ng lead researchers to forecast or to predict in order to develop a classification of research areas. So, dito na nga nag-start yung unang pag-aaral towards research agenda. Next, in the second study, Zawacki Richter, Bakker and Polk on 2009 identified gaps and priority areas according to this classification of research areas and analyzed 695 articles published in 5 prominent DE journals or distance education journals between 2000 and 2008. Zawacki Richter and von Kramer additionally on 2010 investigated gender and collaboration patterns in distance education research. So, in this second study nga, dito na pinag-aralan yung gaps and priority areas according to the classification of research areas. And I forgot to tell earlier, research areas are classified into 5 broad categories. These are arts and humanities, life sciences and biomedicine, physical sciences, social sciences, and technology. So, as a follow-up study, Volskart et al. On 2015 presented trends in the field of distance education research during the period of 2009 and 2013. The trends were identified by an extensive review of 7 peer-reviewed scholarly journals by using classification of research areas developed by Zawacki Richter on 2009. So, 7 peer-reviewed scholarly journals. These are the American Journal of Distance Education, the European Journal of Open Distance and E-Learning, the Journal of Distance Education, the Journal of Online Learning and Technology, Open Learning, the Journal of Open Distance and E-Learning, and the International International Review of Research in Open and Distributed Learning. So the trends were identified by using the classification of research areas developed by Zawaki Richter. So next, the Handbook of Research and Students' Research Competence in Modern Educational Contexts is a scholarly resource that examines a critical analysis of the development of research competence in students, featuring coverage on a broad range of topics such as educational technologies, cognitive interest, and research capacity. So this book is geared towards academicians, researchers, and students seeking current research on the development of research competence. So next, this article entitled Development of Research Competence in University Students Through Blended Learning reports the need to develop a research competence in undergraduate students. This has been studied from different perspectives, so the paper aims to show a proposal by using a strategy called blended learning. So the said book and article are somewhat similar or related to our research since it talks about the research competencies toward university students. So it's just that they differ from the main focus of the study kasi the statements indicate the development of research competence in students while ours simply focus on the effects of online distance learning towards research competence. Foreign studies. First, comparing student research competencies in online and traditional face-to-face learning environments by Hyun-Sun Park. This research compares a completely asynchronous Master of Social Work online research methods class with its traditional face-to-face counterpart using standardized measures of practice evaluation knowledge and research self-efficacy. Results indicate that students' knowledge and research self-efficacy improve between pre-test and post-test, with no significant difference between online learners and traditional face-to-face students. So, pre-test is a test used to evaluate the preparedness of students for further studies, while post-test is often used in conjunction with the pre-test to measure their achievement and the effectiveness of the program. Kumbaga, yung result ng kanilang research ay sinasabing mas nag-improve yung eagerness ng students to compete towards research agenda with no significant difference between online and traditional students. So, next is Students' Perceptions on Distance Education, a multinational study by Patricia Fidalgo, Joan Thorman, and Jose Alberto Lencastre. Many universities offer distance education courses and programs to address the diverse educational needs of students and to stay current with advancing technology. A survey was distributed to undergraduate students in Portugal, UAE, and Ukraine. So, the results of this pilot study show that in all three countries, students' major concern about such programs were time management, motivation, and English language skills. So, the results of this pilot study show that in all three countries, which are the Portugal, UAE, and Ukraine, the major concerns of students about courses and programs through distance education were time management, motivation, and English language skills. So, lastly, for the foreign studies, the study about pedagogical conditions for forming the research competency in future teachers of mathematics by Bakhay Pulkaskatayeva. So, pedagogical means it is relating to or befitting a teacher or education. So, the necessity of studying the theoretical aspects of such phenomenon as the research competence of the future teacher and the relevance of identifying pedagogical conditions of its formation. So, defined the concept of the research competence of a student mathematician as a holistic, integrated characteristic of future teachers of mathematics, manifested its readiness to take an active research position in relation to the educational mathematical activity and to provide the best research results on the basis of theoretical analysis, domestic and foreign literature on the problem of research. Next, local studies. level of research competencies and satisfaction of the faculty members from the College of Criminology. So this study investigated the level of research competencies and satisfaction of the faculty members of College of Criminology Lyceum of the Philippines, University, Batangas City, 4,200 Philippines. Specifically, this study was guided by the following objectives to determine the respondents' level of competency in writing research paper in terms of technical aspects, major and other parts of research paper, to determine the level of satisfaction and the facilities resources provided by the institution to enhance the research competencies and to recommend valuable activities for the enhancement of research capability of the university. So this study hits the main point of our research, specifically the first objective of their study to determine the respondents' level of competency in writing research paper in terms of technical aspects. Since our research paper simply studies about the eagerness of novice students to compete even through online means. For instance, the said local study is the closest related to our research paper so far. Next is comparative study on the effectiveness of e-learning technologies used in the blended learning approach. This randomized multi-group with a pre-test and a post-test experimental research study aimed to compare the effectiveness of e-learning technologies used in the blended learning approach in teaching advanced programming. So, this research provides pre-test and post-test experimental research study in order to know the comparison of efficacy between e-learning technologies. So, let us proceed to local literature. This article by Patricia Arinto, University of the Philippines, entitled Issues and Challenges in Open and Distance E-Learning Perspectives from the Philippines. Rapid advances in information and communications technology in the digital age have brought about significant changes in the practice of distance education worldwide. So, DE practitioners or distance education practitioners in the Philippines Open University have coined the term Open and Distance E-Learning or ODL to refer to the new forms of DE or distance education which are characterized by the convergence of an open learning philosophy, the pedagogies, and e-learning technologies. So, this paper discusses the issues and challenges that ODL possess for the Philippines Open University from the point of view of the institution's leading ODL practitioners. So, the paper concludes with a discussion of the policy development and administrative changes required to support innovative teaching practice across the institution. The findings and conclusions are relevant for other institutions in the same stage of ODL development. So next, an article about the status of the implementation of the e-learning classroom in selected higher education institution in Region 4A amidst the COVID-19 crisis. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, higher education institutions have resorted to online classes or e-learning classrooms to deliver the content of their curriculum in various platforms. So, it seems to be na the only way para makontinue ng mga students yung pag-aaral nila despite of this pandemic is through our e-learning classroom. So, the higher education institutions have resorted to online classes or ito yung ginawa nilang alternative or replacement for the meantime para magtuloy-tuloy pa rin tayo sa pag-aaral natin even though there's a lot of hindrances being encountered through our journey. So, next is the synthesis. So, hindi ko na ito i-discuss kasi ito lang yung combination ng mga nabanggit kong foreign and local literature and studies kanina.
Chapter 3, Research Methodology. Research environment. The locale that the researchers have chosen is in Malasiki Agno Valley College. This place was originally found in the year 1936. It is a private school located at Bonifacio Street, Poblacion, Malasiki, Pangasinan. This place is best suitable for the location of conducting research study and has the biggest part to achieve the goals and objectives of the study. According to Engineer Jerry P. T. Guzman, President of the Malasiki Agno Valley College, the total population of the senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College is 605. Research environment is the place or setting of the study. It describes in the brief places where the study is conducted. Only important features which have the bearing on the present study are included. Our topic is all about the effect of online learning on research competence among senior high school students in Malasiki Agno Valley College. So, we decided to conduct our research in Malasiki Agno Valley College, which is a private school located at Bonifacio Street, Malasiki, Pangasinan. A sample of 100 randomly selected students was taken from a population of senior high school students in Malasiki Agno Valley College. We choose to conduct research in school because our topic is all about study. We also choose the senior high school student in Malasiki Agno Valley College to be our participants or respondents because we know that they have experienced the effect of online learning on a research competence. Research design. To find out the effects of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College, the researchers use the descriptive design research. The descriptive design research is a method that is intended for gathering information and has a purpose of describing the present conditions. It is also used to describe characteristics of a focus on the effects of online distance learning and the research competence of senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College that will be used for statistical data analysis. Research design is a framework of research methods and techniques chosen by a researcher. The design allows the researcher to choose on research methods that are suitable for the subject matter and set up their studies up for success. In this research, we use descriptive research design for us to accurately and systematically describe a population situation or phenomenon about our topic. Respondents of the study. Respondents are those persons who have been invited to participate in a particular study and have actually taken part in the study. Respondents are the persons who will be interviewed in this research study. The researchers choose senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College as their respondents. The respondents of the study is composed of 100 selected senior high school students from Malasiki Agno Valley College, regardless of their age, gender, and strand. Senior high school students are qualified to be the respondents. Respondents of the study is a person who voluntarily participates in a human subject research after giving informed consent to be the subject of the research. We selected the senior high school students in Malasiki Agno Valley College to be the respondents of the study because they are also doing research and experience the effect of online learning in research competence. The respondents of this study composed of 100 selected senior high school students from Malasiki Agno Valley College. Respondents of this study need to consider in thinking of a study or research, especially the population, sample size, sample frame, and sampling method or technique. Sampling design. In this research study, the researchers used the simple random sampling in distributing the survey questionnaire in conducting the survey. The researchers randomly select a subset of participants from a population or a numbers that has a corresponding subject that will be a part of the same population, wherein each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Simple random sampling was used in order to have a fair selection of the respondents and to ensure that the information or opinions are not biased to attain the actual data about the effects of online distance learning on research competence among senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College. All respondents are equally chosen by the researchers. Sampling design is a method generally referred to the technique used to select sample units for measurement. For example, select individuals from a population or location to sample within a study area. The goal is to collect samples that provide an accurate presentation of the population. We use simple random sampling in distributing the survey questionnaires in conducting the survey, wherein each element in the population has an equal probability of being selected, where the population is randomly selected. We use the sampling method to have a fair selection of the respondents in research study, the effect of online learning on research competence among senior high school students in Malasiki Agno Valley College. We use spin the wheel application to make sure that there is no bias in selecting the respondents. Research instrument. This research study used survey questionnaires, a research instrument consisting of a series of questions and other prompts for the purpose of gathering information from respondents as one of the important instruments in gathering data. However, due to the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and to the new method of learning, which is the online distance learning encountered by the students in our contemporary time, researchers have taken the advantage of the advancement of technology, making use of the internet as a medium for research study. Therefore, surveys are conducted through Google Forms, a web-based app used to create forms for data collection purposes. In the preparation of the collection instrument were considered. For instance, the statement describing the situation or issues pertaining was toned down to accommodate the knowledge preparedness of the respondents. Dichotomous questions and multiple choice questions are provided to accommodate the respondents to answer the survey questionnaire accurately. Research instrument is important for collecting data in all types of research methods. These are mainly used by researchers to collect reliable data which will later be analyzed. It includes questionnaires, interviews, observations, focus group discussion, and experiment. But due to pandemic we experiencing today, researchers have sorted to using advanced technology to conduct the survey. We use Google Form that contains dichotomous questions and multiple choice questions for students or respondents to answer the survey questionnaires.
Data gathering procedure. The researchers had allotted time, effort, and cooperation in developing their questionnaire so as to serve its intended respondents. The survey was created using suitable questions modified from related to the effect of online distance learning on research competence of senior high school students. After the advisors approved the survey questionnaire, copies were distributed to the 100 selected senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College through Google Forms. Participants have given time to answer the questionnaire. After data gathering, the researchers collected the survey questionnaire for tallying the score and to apply the statistical treatment of data we use in this study. We responded via Google Form because conducting face-to-face is prohibited due to pandemics and for safety reasons. We asked participants for permission to fill out the survey, and they did so voluntarily. And when we respond via Messenger, we send them the link once they confirm they want to participate in our survey. The survey began on March 22, 2021 and ended on April 10, 2021. Senior high school students were statistically analyzed with the data instrument of the study, and so with the responses of the questionnaire by senior high school students were statistically analyzed with the data requirements of the study. Statistical tools and techniques to present the result of the study is needed in the research. In this research study, the researchers will use descriptive statistics to summarize and describe features from a collection of data or information. A process of using analyzing statistics which summarizes data as a graph, chart, or summary statistics. Therefore, researchers will use infographics or visual representation, especially tables and bar graphs, charts to show the gathered data by the researchers. The statistical treatment of data is used in gathering the result in some research of survey, for example, in a survey regarding how many students will take the strand of STEM. Chapter 4: Analysis, Presentation, and Interpretation of Data. Analysis of data. This chapter states the presentation, analysis, and presentation of data gathered by the researchers through questionnaires. It presents the data gathered, the results of the statistical analysis done, and interpretation of findings. This study aims to determine the effects of online distance learning on research competence among senior high school students of Malasiki Agno Valley College, school year 2020 to 2021. The tables below are the demographic profile of the respondents. Table 1.1 Age of respondents. In this table, it shows the age of the respondents. There are 13 whose age is 16 years old, 45 whose age is 17 years old, 36 whose age is 18 years old, 5 whose age is 19 years old, and 1 whose age is 20 years old. In this table, it shows how many are the male respondents and female respondents. There are 42 male respondents and 58 female respondents. Graph 1. Online distance learning helps senior high school students to be more competent in research study. The graph shows that majority of the respondents agreed that online distance learning helped senior high school students to be more competent in research study with 68%, while there are 32% who disagreed that online distance learning helps senior high school to be more competent in research study. Graph 2. Online distance learning affects students' academic performance, particularly on research competence. The graph shows the majority of the respondents agreed that online distance learning affects students' academic performance, particularly research competence with 80%, while there are 20% who disagreed that online distance learning affects students' academic performance, particularly research competence. Graph 3. It is
better to conduct research study at home to the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and study through online distance learning. The graph shows that majority of the respondents agreed that it is better to conduct research study at home due to the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and study through online distance learning, with 75%. While there are 25% who disagreed that it is better to conduct research study at home due to the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and study through online distance learning. Graph 4. Students still shows of their eagerness in cooperation and collaboration with their members in conducting research study. The graph shows that majority of the respondents agreed that they still show of their eagerness in cooperation and collaboration with their members in conducting the research study with 80%, while there are 20% who disagreed that they still show off their eagerness in cooperation and collaboration with their members in conducting their research study. Graph 5. Online distance learning is still as effective as traditional learning when it comes to conducting research. The majority of the respondents agreed that online distance learning is still as effective as traditional learning when it comes to conducting research study, with 55%, while there are 45% who disagreed that online distance learning is still as effective as traditional learning when it comes to conducting research. Graph 6. Students are satisfied with the technology and software they are using for online distance learning in research study. The graph shows that the majority of the respondents are satisfied with the technology and software they are using for online distance learning in their research study, but does not work well with 52%, while there are 45% who are totally satisfied with the technology and software they are using for online distance learning in their research study. The remaining 3% are not satisfied with the technology and software they are using for online distance learning in their research study. Graph 7. Method of learning which research study is much easier to be done. The graph shows that majority of the respondents agreed that the method of learning which research study is much easier to be done is through traditional face-to-face learning with 83%, while there are 17% who agreed that the method of learning which research study is much easier to be done.
Graph number 8. Level of stress in research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic. The graph shows that the majority of the respondents find the research study during online distance learning and COVID-19 pandemic very stressful with 39%. While there are 34% of respondents who finds research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic as moderately stressful. Other respondents find research study during online distance learning and COVID-19 pandemic slightly stressful with 16%. Other find research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic extremely stressful with 10%. The remaining 1% is only who finds research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic is not so stressful. Graph number 9. Level of difficulty of research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic. The graph shows that the majority of the respondents during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic is difficult with 52%, while there are 26% of respondents agreed that research study during online distance learning and COVID-19 pandemic is neutral, and the remaining 22% agreed that research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic is very difficult. There are only 1% from the respondent who agreed that the research study during online distance learning and during COVID-19 pandemic is very easy. Graph number 10. Effects of online distance learning on research study competence of senior high school students. The graph shows that there is an equal result of the respondents' opinion about the positive and negative effects of online distance learning or their research competence. Graph number 11. Level of interest of senior high school students and their research study at this time of online distance learning and pandemic caused by COVID-19. The graph shows that the majority of the respondents with 40% are moderately interested in their research study at this time of online distance learning and COVID-19 pandemic, while there are 25% of the respondents are slightly interested in their research study at this time of online distance learning and pandemic caused by COVID-19. Others are very interested in their research study at this time of online distance learning and COVID-19 pandemic. However, 10% of the respondents are extremely interested in the research studies at this time online distance learning and pandemic caused by COVID-19. The remaining 2% are not at all interested and 1% is not so interested in the research study at this time of online distance learning in COVID-19 and during COVID-19 pandemic. Graph number 12. Negative effects of online distance learning and academic performance, particularly on research competence of senior high school students. The graph shows that the majority of the respondents agreed that spending too much time in front of their computer or gadgets is the most negative effect of the online distance learning and their academic performance, particularly on the research competence with 67% out of 100, followed by stress in fulfilling the requirements of the research paper with 62% out of 100%. Lastly, 42% out of 100% of the respondents agreed that the emotional and mental health problems is also one of the negative effects of online distance learning in their academic performance, particularly on their research competence. Graph number 13. Advantage of online distance learning and research study of senior high school students. The graph shows that the majority of respondents agreed that the first and most advantage of online distance learning in research study of senior high school students is improves their virtual communication and collaboration with 49% out of 100. Second is less financial cost with 44% of 100%. Third is easier and faster communication with the respondents through online with 38% out of 100%. Fourth is accessibility of time and place in conducting research and easiest way of conducting survey through online are the advantages that have same percentage with 37 out of 100%. It improves their way of time management with 27% out of 100%. Lastly, more comfortable of doing study at home with 22% out of 100%. Graph number 14. Disadvantage of online distance learning in research study of senior high school students. The graph shows that the majority of respondents agreed that the first and most disadvantage of online distance learning and research study of senior high school students is not so all members of research study are active online and they cannot participate in research study online with 61% out of 100. Second is the problem on internet connection with 58% out of 100%. Third is the difficulty of getting punctual answer in their survey due to lack of face-to-face social interaction with 77%. It's 47% out of 100%. Fourth is technical issues with 46% out of 100%. Fifth is the difficulty of finding reliable and punctual information with 38% out of 100%. 6 is the chance of high distraction with 22% out of 100%. Lastly, internet defendability with 21% out of 100%. Graph number 10. Common problems that the student encountered in conducting research study by the means of online distance learning. The graph shows that the majority of respondents agreed that the proposed common problem that the student encounter in conducting research study by the means of online distance learning is low internet connection with 77% out of 100%. Second is uncooperative members with 57 out of 100%. Third is lack of gadgets with 47% out of 100%. Fourth is lack of knowledge and experience of doing research study online with 41% out of 100%. Sixth is incapability to communicate with others with 35% out of 100%. Lastly is additional stress with 27% out of 100%. Thank you.
And for the last part of this research study, which is Chapter 5, Chapter 5 covers the conclusion and the recommendation of this study. And the conclusion is the act of concluding or finishing something, or it is a state of being finished. The conclusion is intended to make the reader understand why our research study should be matter to them after they have finished reading our paper or after they have finished watching our presentation. For our conclusion, as the researchers has demonstrated all throughout the chapters, we firmly conclude that online distance learning caused by COVID-19 pandemic has an impact on the research competence of senior high school students. As we first start this research study, we found out that online distance learning is quite difficult than usual, yet it has equal level of effectiveness as of traditional face-to-face learning in conducting research study. Online distance learning still helps senior high school students to be more competent in research study despite of lack of face-to-face social interaction. However, based on our findings, there are top three advantages and disadvantages of conducting research study through online distance learning. The top three advantages are: first, it improves students' virtual communication and collaboration. Because of the social media and because of the technology, the communication and the collaboration of the researchers and the students improves in conducting research study through online distance learning. The second one is it is less financial costs because the researchers do not need to photocopy these forms for the survey and questionnaires. And the third is it has easier and faster communication. Through the use of cell phones, technologies, and social media, the communication and the collaboration of the researchers become easier and faster. However, the top three disadvantages of conducting research study through online distance learning are as follows. The first one is not all members of the research study are active online because not all members have enough gadgets, not enough internet connection to communicate with their research members. The second one is problem on internet connection because not all places have enough internet connection, Wi-Fi, or mobile data. The third one is the difficulty of getting factual answers in survey because in our contemporary time, there are many fake news and you cannot rely on the information disseminated through social media. The most common problem that researchers always encounter while conducting research study based on our finding is the slow internet connection. This is the most common problem that the researchers encounter based on our findings. It causes delayed progress on the research study. Despite of this, students still show off their eagerness to cooperate towards handling a thesis paper despite of numerous obstacles caused by COVID-19, which means their level of interest and their eagerness is still the same as of when they are conducting research study through traditional face-to-face learning. After all is said and done, online distance learning on research competence has an equal positive and negative effects to the senior high school students. However, most of the senior high school students prefer to conduct research study through traditional learning method because research study through online distance learning is quite difficult than the traditional learning method. Yet, students are still competitive as before.
Lastly, recommendation of our thesis or research paper. First is to the school. In regards to online distance learning on research competence of senior high school student, a school must have better internet connection and good facilities. A superb education system is a must. Teachers should guide and always take consideration in order for their students to learn well, especially guide your students continually in conducting research study to cope with the problems encountered in online distance learning on their research competence. Problems arose simultaneously with the pandemic, and the education have also been affected. The school must be considerate to its employees and students as they still take adjustments toward online distance learning. The school must always take consideration since lahat naman tayo ay sobrang naapektuhan dahil sa pandemic na to. And also, we all still need to take adjustments sa mga bago at hindi pa familiar sa atin na surroundings and doings upon the situation. Next is to the students. So, always comply with your teacher's assigned task. Be responsible and cooperative with other schoolmates, especially when they are conducting survey research and other types of research methods, because students are the one who have the highest chance to become respondents. You must respond in an honest and sincere way. Your answers must reflect the genuine way of your living. It should be based on what you are really encountering upon the situation. Do not treat it as if it's a joke, because you never know how significant your answers are and your great contributions for the successful outcome of the study. You can also use this as an opportunity to learn and to be prepared to conduct research study in the future. So for the students naman, students are our main respondents. So for students na magiging respondents for the future related study gaya ng research na to, they should always bear in mind that their answers must be accurate since ito yung nagsisilbing patunay or evidence para sa research na to. Hindi nila dapat basta-bastang laruin o ipagsuwalang bahala yung mga answers nila kasi those answers have a great contribution for the successful outcome ng isang research paper. So, lastly to the future researchers. To all upcoming researchers who will undergo the same or related study, we strongly recommend that you must gather information deeply in order to build up clear conclusion. Responses of your chosen respondents will serve as a validation for your research study. You need to be accurate and truthful in conducting research study. It is suggested to practice and learn that collecting factual and detailed information is vital. This research study was conducted with truthfulness, sincerity, passion, and accuracy. Thus, we critically suggest to develop the relativeness and effectiveness of this research study. So, to the future researchers, they must gather information completely and accurately. Huwag nilang hayaan na magkaroon yung research paper nila ng kahit anong weakness or incompleteness in order for it to be approved or successful.
That would be the end of this video presentation. I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed this video presentation presented by Group 1 researchers. Special thanks to our practical research advisor, Mrs. Dimple Matias, for giving us the opportunity to build our knowledge, skills, and abilities to accomplish this task she has given to us. That's all. Again, thank you and God bless us all.